Welcome to the Three Questions webcast series. I'm Wayne Baxter with One Capital Management. At One Capital Management, we develop and implement strategies for our clients which strive to grow, protect, and ultimately distribute their wealth. And we do that by offering investment wealth management services. Thank you for taking time to check us out. My clients are often referred to as cross-border clients. Now, why is that? Well, it's because they're either U.S. or Canadian residents who invest in U.S. and or Canadian dollar-denominated securities like stocks, bonds, and ETFs. Our process for advising our clients involves an in-depth discovery and diagnostic analysis of their wealth management goals and objectives. And as one would expect, that analysis will include a review of their wealth management strategy. Today, we're going to take a closer look at risk management by discussing liability insurance, commonly known here in the United States as umbrella insurance. On this webcast, we'll be reviewing the 3 questions you should ask about umbrella insurance. And joining me is Diane Beatty. Diane is the Managing Director, Private Client Services with San Francisco, California-based Cal Insurance and Associates, Inc. Their goal is to protect your personal assets from loss, and they do that by structuring personal property and casualty insurance programs. Diane offers a complimentary review of existing insurance programs, including home, automobiles, fine arts, jewelry, valuable items, and personal umbrella. Hi, Diane. How you doing? It's great to see you again.
Nice to see you, Wayne.
I'm glad you're able to join us again on the 3 Questions webcast. I guess before we get started here, just so that we're clear for folks who are watching us today about what we refer to as umbrella insurance. Some people call it liability insurance. Some people call it umbrella. Just maybe you want to clarify, first of all, maybe what it should be called or is called most commonly, and why is it so important that, and I'll remember just as an initial, when I first moved here to California, one of my colleagues I met asked me, quite frankly, he says, "Do you have umbrella insurance?" And I answered, like any good Canadian would. And I said, "What's that?" No, it turned out that the insurance company that I had hired had taken the initiative, and I did actually have coverage. But that wasn't something when I first moved down here I was really familiar about. So maybe you could just, first of all, proper definition, and secondly, why is it so important?
Sure. Think about umbrella insurance as a means of protecting your assets if you have a lawsuit or owe damages to another party. So think about your dog biting someone being injured as a passenger in your car, somebody being thrown from your boat in a boating accident. Anything like that. Your home, your auto, your boat insurance will have some level of liability. That's your first layer or personal liability. But if that's not enough to pay for the damages you owe the other party, that's where the umbrella liability will kick in. And there is another term, it's also called excess liability. There's a finite difference between the two, but both work really much the same way. They're going to pay for damages above and beyond that home or auto or boat policy that you owe to another party.
Oftentimes when I tell clients why they should talk to you, I'll reference to the innocuous right-hand turn on to another street where they inadvertently bump somebody, and maybe an elderly person, and knock them over, and they fall and break a hip, would be another example of where that definitely could apply for, where regular just car insurance wouldn't cover that potential loss.
Well, the car insurance would be first to respond to that damage.
Understood.
Right? Yep.
But there could also be
serious damages to the other party. Yeah.
And good old-fashioned U.S. litigation.
Right.
I should mention, though, this is not Diane's first time visiting us. She joined us a few episodes back, and on that one, we addressed the 3 questions that Canadians should ask about insurance before offering to purchase a home here in the United States. And Diane offered some really important suggestions, and I will invite you to visit our YouTube channel and check that one out as well. So it's now time to get to our 3 questions you should ask about umbrella insurance. And this time around, Diane, we're going to do it a little bit differently. We're going to have Diane ask the question. So Diane, take it away. First question.
The first question that we have, and these are questions that I hear regularly from clients, and I really want clients to think about when they're considering umbrella liability. The first question is your umbrella limit sufficient to protect your current assets and future earnings? Remember that in the United States, if you have an award against you by a court of law, you're gonna have to satisfy that judgment. And part of that judgment may be a garnishing of future wages, in addition to the taking of some assets. So you have to think not only about the assets you hold today, but also about your future earnings. And when I want people to really think about that limit, I get the question a lot, is my limit sufficient? And you really have to think about what your exposures are. Do you own a pool or a hot tub? Do you have pets? Maybe a dog that might bite somebody, or that friendly snake your son wanted to have as a pet, or a nanny or a housekeeper. Do you entertain at home and serve alcohol to your guest? These are some of the more common areas where I see big claims come in, and hopefully the clients have had the umbrella coverage that's sufficient to allow them to satisfy those judgments. So determining what the right limit is for you is really about your exposures. You know yourself and your family better than anybody else. Do you text and talk on the phone while driving? That's probably going to be a big one. Just like you said, Wayne, I carry a high limit because I know I do that sometimes, and I'm afraid I'm going to go through a crosswalk and take out a pedestrian. I know myself, so I buy a high limit.
You know, this is a perfect segue into like, this is where you and I intersect in our roles, in that one of the big parts of the work that we do with our clients is capital forecasting. So indeed, we can actually provide that information with regards to the future earnings estimate. You know, how much is because if you said, if the risk isn't just what are my assets I own today, but also what is my potential income earning power over, say, the next 20 years, you know, with every client that we work with, we can provide that specific data to you or to the client and say, here's what your potential risk going forward is over the next 3, 5, 7, 10, 15, 20 years in terms of what your income earning capacity, which again, as you mentioned, could potentially be at risk. So you can factor that into your calculation that you do to determine the proper protection.
Absolutely.
Great. Good one, Phil. First one, we got that one taken care of. What is kind of limits? The second question, Diane, take it away.
Yeah, the second question that comes up is, does your umbrella insurance provide excess uninsured, underinsured motorist protection? This is really important in the United States, particularly in California. In California right now, we estimate that 12.6% of drivers on the roads are driving without insurance. Wow. Or with just the state minimum limit of insurance. And in California, that limit, the minimum you have to show before you can drive a car, is just $15,000 of coverage per person and $5,000 of coverage for property damage you do to others. So if you're driving that beautiful $60,000 Tesla and you get hit by somebody with just $5,000 of property damage coverage, you're out $55,000 if you don't have uninsured, underinsured motorist protection. Many people will have that coverage on their auto policy. Again, that's the first level of protection. But let's just say the person that hits you injures you severely or passengers in your car severely, and you only have $300,000 of uninsured motorist coverage on your auto policy. Your passengers are going to come after you for their damages because the other party had the minimum limits, then your policy tapped out at $300,000, but they are now maybe injured seriously and unable to work for years. They're going to come after you since they were a guest in your vehicle. So having excess uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage as part of your umbrella policy is another key way to protect your assets, so you can go on without coming out of pocket for your expenses.
So I'm going to come at this as a layperson as only I can. So for that, is that an additional coverage amount, or would that be covered under that sort of one overarching lump sum of protection? So in other words, is there like riders? Like how is that protection provided?
That's a great question, Wayne. So let's just say I've purchased $5 million of umbrella coverage for
Right.
damage I do to other people. Certain companies, Chubb, Cincinnati, Markel, USLI, there are about a handful of companies in California that will allow you to do a rider and buy an additional $1 million of coverage just for losses due to uninsured, underinsured motorists. That's nothing to do with your 5 million, because that 5 million is for damage you did to others. This extra 1 million you're buying is for you and the guest in your vehicle that are injured by somebody else that's not insured properly.
I'm telling you, this is incredibly important information. This is excellent. So the answer is yes. There's a rider basically that you get. It isn't. So in other words, that first 5 million that you get isn't going to protect under that situation. That's good to know. All right. So let's go to number 3, Diane. We're burning through these quickly, but great information.
All right. And so the third question that's really important is, are all my properties, autos, vehicles, watercraft, motorcycles, are all of those covered under my umbrella policy? Obviously, that's very important. You have to list them. They have to show every home you have an interest in, rental property, watercraft, all the drivers of your vehicles. They all need to be listed on that umbrella policy for the policy to respond. The big question you have to look, if you look at it and you say, yep, I see my 2 homes, my 4 cars, my 3 drivers, my 1 boat, they're all there, I'm good. The other thing you have to do is recognize the umbrella policy only kicks in usually after the first 300,000 of liability has been paid by that first policy, the auto policy or the home policy. I just reviewed a client this morning who only has $100,000 of coverage on his auto policy, and yet he has a $5 million umbrella. He did not realize he has a $200,000 gap in coverage.
So it's always 300,000 is the baseline.
Pretty much. Some carriers it's 500,000, but 300,000 is definitely going to be your starting point. Each carrier is a little bit different, but generally 300,000.
Well, you know what this really speaks to from my point of view, we talk about review, we always, I'm a bit of a bear for reaching out to my clients every 3 months and wanting to have a review with them. I just find it's a way of staying connected and keeping everybody up to speed, and what this speaks to for me in our discussion today is the importance of regularly reviewing your property and casualty insurance, your liability protection. And because time passes and things change in your people's lives, and it's important that you stay on top of these, right? This is a super important aspect, especially here, as you mentioned, here in the United States, we're much more likely to be potentially exposed to litigation or potentially, inadvertently causing havoc in someone else's life. And you want to make sure that you're protected, right? It's super important.
Well, I was going to say too, Wayne, the other thing that Canadians should know about coming to the US, when you think about a $5 million policy, I'm sure people are going, oh, how much does that cost?
Right.
You have 2 homes, one in Canada, one in the US, you have 2 autos, you have 2 drivers. A $5 million umbrella policy is about $700 a year. A year. That's incredibly inexpensive. And if you added that $1 million extra of uninsured motorists, it raises the cost in about another $100 a year. So it's so inexpensive to get this really important coverage.
Yeah, I think for most people, this is ultimately, if we're being rather blunt about it, it's a rounding error on someone's balance sheet overall. But, I had to say this, one of my favorite sayings is ignorance is bliss and the mother of adventure. And this would be one of those examples where I did not know. And so the goal here today is to educate and inform our audience. And I think you've done a great job, really. Once again, I cannot thank you any more I possibly can for joining us here. You were great. For the folks watching today or listening, what is the best way for them to reach out to you? I have a suspicion that there are going to be folks that are going to want to circle back to you on this and maybe get a consultation or at least a review of what they have in place. What's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah, absolutely, Wayne. The one thing I do want to add, because I do think this is important, the umbrella policy, if I bought a $5 million limit and I was sued, that $5 million is just for the damages against me. In the United States, all of my attorney fees are paid above and beyond the cost of the policy. And that, as we know in the US, your attorney fees can add up to be more than the cost of the policy. So I just wanted to make that key point. It's paying for your attorney fees as well. So if you're named and you weren't wrong, you still get defense costs paid because you have this policy. So very important. So to get in touch with me, I'm Diane Beatty. I'm the managing director at Cal. You can email me at dbeatty@mycalteam.com or just give me a call at 415-680-2112. I respond to both of them in a very timely manner and would be happy to provide any guidance or education that I can for your Canadian clients.
Yeah, or clients here in the U.S. We have both.
Yep, absolutely.
Diane, thanks a lot again. I really appreciate you taking part today. Diane Beatty is, as she said, Managing Director, Private Client Services with San Francisco, California-based Cal Insurance and Associates. And I want to thank her again for joining us.
Thank you.
I look forward to bringing you the 3 Questions webcast, and I hope you find them educational and informative. Please consider liking this video and subscribing to our YouTube channel. And to receive a notification of when our latest webcasts have been posted, please click on the notifications bell. Lastly, to schedule an online Zoom consultation with me to discuss your wealth management needs, please click on the link described in the description box below. You'll notice it says www.onecapital.com/meet with Wayne. Thank you and see you soon.